McNair gives it to George, running right up the middle. Touchdown! Titans! There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle!
Safety, now you're one-on-one with it.
Shows why he's the man! In trouble. Sack!
Titan Nation, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Mr. Titan. Today, my guest is a former Houston Oiler wide receiver. We have Dr. Reginald Brown. How you doing today, sir?
I'm well, man. Thank you for having me on your show, man.
Hey,
It's a pleasure to be here.
I think I need one of those chairs. That chair looks comfy and it looks good, man.
Hey, man. And my wife, man, I can't take any credit for it. My wife in my office, and I'm a principal at the school, as you mentioned, and so my wife, she take care of me, man.
There we go. That's what's up. That's what's up. How's being a principal? Because I've also had a former Houston Oilers / Tennessee Titan wide receiver.
Nice.
Yes, sir, Mr. Dyson on, and chopped it up with him, and he talked about his education and him coming from being a football player to principal, and some of the similarities and differences on that. If you could, talk to me a little bit about your principal skills, sir.
Well, my dad was born in 1932,
Okay.
and my dad, when he was 6 years old, had to stop going to school and go work in the fields to help support his family. And so he grew up illiterate, couldn't read, and he didn't want that for his children. And so when I was growing up, he was very, very serious about education. And I couldn't play football unless I took education very, very serious. And, it wasn't, C's were unacceptable in my house. I had to get A's and B's to be able to stay on the football team and run track and all of those things. And so, the credit is to my dad. And, there are some similarities. I mean, anything that you're in, you want to compete. And as an athlete, and we are competing for the lives of these young people. We're competing for their futures. And if we don't educate them well, they won't have a future. And there's so many things that go against them being successful that we have to compete against. And so for me, it's a healthy competition. I get up every day going to work, knowing that I got to win. And that's what being a football player is about, winning. It's what being an athlete is about. And for me, that's what being a principal is about, winning for these young people.
That's amazing. That's awesome, man. How long have you been a principal?
Well, I've been in education for over 20 years.
Okay.
And then, I'll just give you a little history. So after my fourth year in the NFL, I tore my knee up again. I tore it up in college, and then I tore it up again. And at that point, it's life over limb, and it's kind of what you're going to do. And then I started coaching college football. Started coaching at Delaware State, started coaching at Texas Southern, some HBCUs. And came a point where college football, I didn't like the hours. I was, recently married, and, you're traveling and you're away from your family. And so
Yeah.
I went down to high school, and really, I didn't know what I was going to do. And one of my buddies just said, well, why don't you go be a high school coach? And I didn't know in the state of Texas, you have to be a teacher and a coach. So, I kind of fell into education, wanting to coach. And I coached for probably 7 or 8 years, became a head coach and all of that kind of stuff. And one day, we had lost the playoff game, and I'm walking off the field, and I hear myself in my mind say, I'm tired of this shit, man. And when I said it, I meant I'm tired of going to football practice every day. I'm tired of, I had been going to football practice every year of my life for about 35 years in a row. And at that point I decided, you know what, I'm done. Football has been good to me. I'm not coaching anymore. I'm going home at 3 o'clock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be done. And And so then that led into the next step. What do you do next? Well, you compete. And in education, the next step from a teacher is being an instructional coach, and the next step is being assistant principal, and the next step is being a principal. So I went through that whole thing. And so I've been the principal at this school for 3 years now. I've been an associate principal, assistant principal, all of that kind of stuff. But, really, again, the drive, the to compete is what really has fueled this, along with caring about young people.
Of course. So your main motivation now is, getting up and like competing, helping these kids out. And that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
being the best at what you do, and for me, being the best at what I do is going to make sure that young people have an opportunity in life.
it's important. It's our future, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
what it comes down to.
yeah.
And do you at times do kids recognize you or maybe their parents, and do they try to get some tips from you? I wish I had that where I had a principal that was a former athlete and stuff. I mean, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, well, I say this all the time, right? It's my kind of my story. I was a guy in the NFL, and I'm very honest about that. My first year, I went to Alabama State University, so I went to a HBCU. I was undrafted. I go, all the things fall in place. I make the practice squad my first year. The next year, I make the team. The next year, I make the team. The next year is the year that, okay, things are happening, and I got a chance. Maybe I'm finna get some playing time. I'm fighting for a new contract now, and all of a sudden I tear my knee up, and I tore the knee up in college. And so you make this decision of life over limb. And I tell people all the time, at this age, in my mind, um, I was planning to be in Hawaii somewhere sipping on Mai Tais. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
God's purpose for my life, he knew that the NFL is a mechanism, a gateway that kids really respect. And so they buy into what I'm selling because of the NFL. And so I'm able to impact my kids' lives because they do find out I played in the NFL. They do see some of the things and hear about some of the things, and they come in my office and there's this picture there or whatever. And so we have this conversation, and we can lead it into a life-changing conversation because of football. And so I'm not fooled that my life wasn't divinely ordered to go through the NFL to get where I'm at now in education.
Yes, sir. And that's cool that you can you can give them life lessons along
Yes.
like with an NFL story or something like that. That's something that I think a lot of kids nowadays need. I think that some people lack that, is just like uh, building a foundation for kids, or even kids to have someone that I think we were talking about at work, is just back in the day, like, superheroes, like Superman was a big, that's someone you looked up to,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you have like these movie stars, these celebrities that what what are the kids nowadays, what are they looking up to? They're not really much of a role model. These movie stars,
Right,
these
right,
people
right,
are out of
right. Well,
control, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, and we have to continue to, even as the principal, I push them towards academic excellence no matter what you're doing. So if being a rapper is your thing, bet I get it. Okay, let's go with it. Then how do you become the best rapper? Well, part of it is you learn how to read and get some dictionary skills and learn some words,
Word.
and not just
Yep.
be this suck rapper who just saying something. How about let's rap and get a message going, right? So whatever it is, you want to pursue it with excellence, and everything that you do in life, you want to pursue it with excellence. So when you have a principal who can say and speak about excellence in a very real way to them, it certainly means something to them.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree with you on that, especially getting through that message of shooting for that, and especially
Yeah.
if it's something they're passionate about. Because
Hey, but I'm sure your people want to hear about some football, so let's go with it. I don't want to bore. I don't want to bore them. We can talk about education all day, and it's my passion. But you know, however you
There,
want to take it. But I
there's
want to
nothing
let you.
wrong with talking about your passion, man. And we're gonna talk obviously about another passion was playing wide receiver. You must have done track and field back
Of
in high
course,
school, right?
of course.
What was your main focus in high school? Was it basketball? Was it always football, or it kind of fell into it?
The football was always number one. I mean, I just love the competition. Growing up in the hood, you know, you had to be able to handle yourself on the football field. And obviously, basketball, there was no, centralized sport. You just play in basketball, it was basketball, and baseball, it was, baseball in the streets, and it
Mhm.
was track, and then you race around the houses, and you just athletics and sports was everything. Kickball, hopscotch, whatever, let's do something. And but football was always the main thing. I, in hindsight, wish I would have listened to my daddy and played baseball because that's where the money at, and I could have still been there, probably even at 50-something years old. You can play
Okay.
baseball forever. But yeah, football was always my main thing, man.
Gotcha. And you always wanted to be wide receiver? Was it another position that you played or
No,
no?
it was always, I played, safety and corner
Okay.
in little league and high school, but that's just because of being an athlete and you stay on the field. I wasn't, particularly really good. I mean, I was good enough to be play both ways, but for me, it's always been about being a receiver.
Gotcha. What college did you go to? You
I
said
went to Alabama State University, man, HBCU, SWAC, and was very fortunate. Obviously, being from Miami in the 80s when I went to college, obviously, I wanted to go to University of Miami and do that whole thing. But unfortunately, or fortunately, that wasn't in the cards. And so uh, I thought I was going to Tulane, and
Mhm.
the coach from Alabama State, who was from our neighborhood, came to my daddy house. I wasn't there, and when I came home that evening, my daddy said, "You going to Alabama State?" And I'm like, "What? Where is that? What are you talking about?" And he said, "Coach McKenzie told me you gonna go to church and you gonna graduate." And that's all
That's
we're not
it.
having this conversation. I'm not talking to nobody. And I called my older brother. I was like, "Hey man, call dad, man. You better come over here. Daddy talking about Alabama State. What is that? Where is that?" And my brother came over and went in the room and talked to my dad. He's like, "Man, you going to Alabama State, bro."
That's
And
it. That's
that's it. And
it.
but I'll tell you, man, Father knows best, and it ended up being the best decision that I could have made, going to Alabama State University and that whole experience. And I'm a better guy for it.
Now, you said you're from Miami?
Yes, sir.
What part of Miami, man?
Dade County.
Dade County.
I went to Central.
Okay, you went. Okay, okay.
Stay right around the corner from Central.
Yeah, man. I lived in Kendall. I grew up in Miami. I grew up in Dade County. I know recognize my phone number was a 305
Yes, I saw
number.
that. Yes, of course. I saw that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, indeed. You
So
got a Miami swag. You got a Miami swag about you. I see that.
just a little bit. I'm in Texas
Yeah,
now. I'm in Dallas, Texas, but
yeah,
yeah, I still got that Miami in me, man.
yeah.
I went
Yeah.
to Florida State. I hung
Very
out.
good.
Yeah, we did Florida State and did a lot of partying over there. Did a lot of FAMU. FAMU is
All of
where
that.
it's at. FAMU is
All
where
of that. All of that. Exactly. I mean,
you,
I went to Alabama State, but I did a lot of partying at Alabama. That's
there
what
you go.
it is.
That's
Yeah.
what's up. So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't know about you. So that's pretty cool. There you go, Miami boy. Miami
Yeah.
boy.
Sure. And again, all of those things, living in Miami, you got to have an edge, and you got to, be ready and for
Yeah,
whatever that
100%.
shows up. And, you better be ready for
Yeah,
whatever.
of course. Yeah, Miami will eat you up alive if you ain't ready. That's something that's completely different. Living in Texas is
Yeah.
I had like a culture shock when I got here,
Yeah.
and just again, people, saying hi to me on the streets randomly, and I didn't know them. I'm like, why are they saying hi to me? Like,
Right,
it's
exactly.
it's crazy. I had to kind of
Exactly.
clear. I had to clear my mindset and be like, okay, let's
Yeah. For me, when I was with the Oilers, it was like when I first got to Houston, it was like, man, you friendly. And I had to change my mindset of what's wrong with being friendly?
Yeah, yeah,
What's wrong with that? But and so when I go back to Miami and I'm like, and with and especially when I was younger and I would be with my friends, I'm like, bro, relax. They just said, it ain't all of that. But so I'm in the great state of Texas, been here now for over 30 years, I guess. So, I will never say I'm a Texan, but
yeah.
Houston is all right with me.
All right, you're in Houston, not too far, man.
Yeah.
Uh, so let's talk a little bit about your days playing with the Houston Oilers. Who was the coach? Who was GM? Just all that, just in case the viewers don't know.
Yeah. I came through the Oilers in 1993 was my first year. Jack Pardee was the head coach. Floyd Reese was the general manager. Uh, Jeff Fisher was my last year. Jeff Fisher was the head coach. Um, I came through at a great time. It was a great time and a very difficult time. My first year was the year we went to the playoffs and lost to Buffalo, and Buffalo came back and beat us. And so
Yeah.
you know so uh ultra super talented team, three Hall of Famers on that team, Pro Bowler after Pro Bowler on that team, probably one of the most talented teams in NFL history. When you talk about the number of Pro Bowlers and Hall of Famers on that team, but unfortunately we could never cross that thing and get to that next level. But it was the run and shoot and Lorenzo White and Bubba McDowell and Chris Dishman and Ernest Givens and Webster Slaughter and all of those guys.
Nice, nice. And do you talk to any of the gentlemen still to this day?
Most definitely, most definitely. For me, and being a teammate is something that I take very serious. And so all of my teammates throughout the years, you build these relationships. And so, being the principal, one of the great things about being in the NFL and having played is I can randomly get guys to come to my school and speak to kids. So
That's
I'm
cool. Yeah.
constantly having Haywood, Jeffrey, Ernest Givens, those types of guys come and talk to my kids, and they happily do it for me. And again, it just makes a difference in the lives of the kids that at my school.
Absolutely, that's cool. It's a you have like that advantage too, and I bet you they're
Yeah.
probably thrilled and want to share because I think
Oh yeah.
that's the most important thing, and that's why I wanted to do the podcast. Was not only yes, it's a football player, but talk about his his goals, his dreams, and talk a little bit about him, just in case there's people that never heard of you, or maybe they
Right.
did,
Of course.
and they just want to catch up as
Yeah.
fans, we want to know, how you're doing and what you're doing with your life now, and it's always good to see you guys so involved in the community. It's good, especially when you follow the player for so long in their career, and then they kind of shy away or do life. I guess what you.
Yeah. And I think that you know you have to be a pretty selfish person if you've played in the NFL and then not give back, man. I don't care what your disposition is, what you say. If you've been blessed with the opportunity to play a great game and make some money and achieve your goals and then not give back, that sucks. Now, I will say that you can't really judge people because it looks so different and what giving back means. So I don't presume, but for me, giving back is part being a principal. For some people, giving back is at their church, and some people giving back is
Different.
financially. So it looks different for everybody. But my point is, if you played in NFL, MLB, National Basketball Association, you got to be giving back, man. That's just selfish if you don't.
Of course. Now, do you have any crazy stories that maybe you can think off the top of your head, especially playing football back in the day with the Houston Oilers?
Man, I,
Yeah, give me a good one. Give me a good one. Give me a good
uh,
one. Let's hear a good one.
so when you say give me a good one, because a good one means a lot. So
That's
you got to tell me kind of where you want me to take it. What level of good story do you want? Because
But
it's
hey, the mic is yours. You say whatever you want, man. No pressure.
okay.
Let's do it.
Oh man, I got to keep in mind I'm a principal and I
Yeah,
can't be
yeah,
putting
yeah.
stuff.
100%. I ain't trying to set you up. I know. I'm just saying.
I mean, there's been so many, man. The NFL is such a different life, man. It's such a where things that seem real aren't real. They are you know so fake, and all of that stuff, and it's so easy to get caught up. I'll tell you some stories. This is what I'll tell you. So uh, the FBI, the DEA, the CIA, at the beginning of training camp, all of these law enforcement, they come in,
Mhm.
right, and they talk to you and say about these challenges that you're going to face as an NFL player, and they tell you be careful because you will you could get easily caught up in something if you're not careful. And so they tell these stories, man, and I'm just thinking about some of the stories that they tell. Like there was once, this was some baseball players. Obviously, they didn't tell us the names, but there
Mhm.
was these baseball players, and they had a boat, and they like riding a boat, and they met these other guys, rich guys who they presume were rich, and they had a boat, and they kind of hung out for a couple of months just doing boat stuff and fishing. And all of a sudden, they're really good friends. And the guy says, "Hey, man, I got to fly to this, man. Can you talking to the NFL, baseball player? Hey, man, can you drive my boat up to Tampa and
Um,
yada 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 and whoop de whoop?" And dude, cool. Yeah, man, I'll take it. And all of a sudden he's taking it. And all of a sudden in the bottom of the boat got 100 keys of cocaine on the boat
oh
that the
no.
baseball player is transporting. You know what I mean? And there was this guy in New Orleans, Mr. Still remember his name. His name was Dr. Boudreaux, and he was operating in Dallas, I believe it was. We kind of deduced Dallas. I'm not 100% sure, but he uh, fashioned himself as a doctor. And so obviously NFL players, you're a doctor, we meet, we having drinks. The doctor says, "Hey man, I know these nurses, man, y'all come on with me. We're gonna go to a party." And they go to the party, they give them drugs, then they have the dudes come in and take some pictures, and then they send them to the NFL players and blackmail them. And
Blackmail.
this went on from state to state to state. This guy, Dr. Boudreaux, did this like multiple times, multiple states. And so, when people, yes, it's a glamorous life. There's no doubt about that, but there are so many challenges, so many pitfalls, man. I was remember driving from training camp, and this is with an Oiler, and obviously I'm not going to say his name, but I'm riding with him, and I'm a rookie, and we're in San Antonio and training camp, and we get a break, and so he say, "Hey, man, you going back to Houston?" And I'm looking for a ride. I haven't, I'm fresh out of college, haven't brought my car yet and all of that. "Yeah, man, I'm trying to get back to Houston and get back to my hotel and yada, yada, yada." And I ride with him, and we ride, and he opens up his, you know, uh, glove compartment and pulls out the little thing and takes it. Oh, he's like, "Hey, yo." And I'm like, "Nah, bro."
I'm good.
Yeah, but and you like, "Damn, that guy for real." And there's just so many things that you go to, and then finally I'll tell you, and this you've probably seen this and just didn't know it was me, but you remember the story where Buddy Ryan punched Kevin Gilbride, our offensive coordinator, on the sideline.
Uh-huh.
So Buddy Ryan's son was my agent. So his
Okay.
son, Jim Ryan, was an agent, and he was my agent. And obviously you stay in contact with your agent, for a guy like me who's constantly on the bubble, I was constantly, hey man, what they saying and this and then. So we talked a lot. He's like, hey man, watch Buddy, man. Buddy, watch dad, because he has been pretty, upset about y'all keep throwing the ball on half, throwing the ball when it's 3rd and 1. And obviously the run and shoot, we threw the ball most of the time. And we're a Monday night game, I think Monday night or Sunday night game, and it gets hot and we throw it on 3rd and 1 and we don't get the first down. And Buddy walked by Kevin Gilbride, who's our offensive coordinator, and said, "You coach like a P," right? And Kevin was like, "F you," and this and that. It comes up later on, it's 3rd and 2, right before halftime, and we don't run it. We throw a pass, we don't get the first down. Now we punt it, they get the ball, and one of our players, and I don't quite remember who, but one of our players tears his Achilles like 2 plays later. And that just sent Buddy over it. That because he felt like if we run the ball out, run the clock, we go into halftime. And the
Nothing would
fact
happen.
that
I would have heard.
nothing would have happened. And he lost it, and he just walked, and I'm standing right there, and Buddy just swings on him, you know. And you like, and
Imagine if that would have happened in this day and age. Everyone
oh,
would have gone nuts.
yeah, and memes and all of that. Yeah, 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 yeah. But the
You- you-
NFL is different, man. And yeah, I, I the guys that play now and again, this isn't being a, or maybe it is just being an old head.
Mhm.
But these guys couldn't play when I played. I'm just
I
telling you.
agree. Half of them couldn't.
Nah, nah, nah. The injuries, like, and maybe it's for the best, maybe it's for the best. But you see somebody fall and hit their head and they got a concussion and out for 2 weeks. I just I don't know. I struggle to really understand what that's about. I know there's a science behind it, but
Yeah.
I also know that I got the snot knocked out of me in high school, college,
You got
you
right back
know,
up.
and you got right back up and you went right back in the game and it was nothing.
Mhm.
And so, the game has changed and it's probably changed for the better, I guess. But yeah, I don't think these guys could have played with us.
Now, do you think that the change, obviously, I feel like it's a lot softer and safer now, football. Do you think that had to do with a little bit of the players, how they play, or is it like the refs, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, I think that when you say safer,
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily sure if that's the case, because when I played in a year, maybe 3 or 4 players would get an Achilles tear.
Mhm.
A bicep tear was almost unheard of.
Okay.
ACLs, you would have 10 or 12 a year.
Mhm.
And now you getting 50 and 60 guys blowing out an Achilles, biceps tears, all of these concussions week after week after week. And so the game was is less physical, but there seems to be more and more
Injuries.
injuries.
Yeah.
And so, you know, safer, I don't know. I know they're trying to do the right things to keep players safe. I don't know if the reduction of practices and all of the
Is
things
it
that you
strength and
go through.
conditioning? Because again, the Tennessee Titans were one of the top teams that would constantly get hurt, and no one understood what was happening. We didn't know if it was practice or it was just the strength and conditioning coach, or just the way maybe the guys are preparing their bodies,
Well, I think it's a couple things. I've said this on some other platforms. I believe that your body is supposed to have some fat on it, right? And some of the guys like uh uh what's his name? Jalen Phillips for the Dolphins.
Mhm.
They show him before he actually tore his ACL that he kind of like shook his knee the play before, like what's going on. And
Yeah.
then the next play, he takes a step and it snaps, right? And I think that these guys who body frame says 6'3", 240
Mhm.
are now 6'4", 265 and all muscle.
Gotcha.
And they're stretching these ligaments to the point where they're just snapping. Before, when I was playing, I tore my ACL, but I tore my ACL because I got hit in the knee. So
Mhm.
that's what happened when you got, I mean, you see guys running straight lines,
You get
not
hurt.
even cutting, and the Achilles snap, the
Mhm.
ACL snap. So that, to me, it says something about what athletes are doing to their body, and no body fat, you know, working out on these specific muscles day in and day out and day in and day out. I mean, how do you tear your bicep? Well, you stretch it, stretch it, stretch it to the point where it just
Yeah.
gives. So that's my own theory,
Mhm.
obviously not based in medical fact, but I just don't know how else it's happening where guys are just running down the field and it's snapping.
It's strange though, because again, the injuries every year have gone up drastically.
And
Continue.
especially when the more they're doing more and more and more to protect them. They're limiting practices during the week more and more and more. They're limiting practice during the summer, more and more and more. They keep limiting them. So you would think that that would have the adverse effect,
Hmm.
but unfortunately, it's not.
Interesting. That's a weird, I guess.
It's a weird dynamic, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's strange how that kind of works out, especially if you say
Mhm.
like they're trying to be safer by less practice. How many practices did you guys have in a week?
We had 2-a-days when I was playing.
Whoosh.
Yeah, we still
I don't
had
even,
two.
I don't even think I don't even think they do that.
Yeah, we still had. In fact, in we practice. I mean, obviously, you know this. We practice in San Antonio. You know how hot it is in San Antonio, bro.
Man.
We was practicing at 3 o'clock and 103 degrees in Texas, and there is no falling out. And I'm tired. We were still running sprints and gashes and all of this kind of stuff. Back at all of that.
Damn.
So again, we practice a lot. I mean, we had full pads Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday was, every shoulder pads and shorts. Where now some teams don't even put on pads during the week.
Yeah, it's wild. What
Yeah, it's wild.
what team did you like playing against a lot?
Oh, that's a good one, man. I think Pittsburgh and the old dog pound. Obviously those division rivals where them, they know you, you hate them, they hate you, and more importantly, their fans hate you because that makes for a great experience. I mean, it sucks, but the atmosphere in that old dog pound, man, they competed every year, and they threw the dog bones on the field when you came out, and they had that old stadium, but it was rocking, man. I mean, it was rocking. And Three Rivers in Pittsburgh was the same way, where those fans are very, very passionate about their team. And it's those atmospheres. It was all about football a lot of times. Now it's the glitz and the glam and the music that they're playing in the background, and all of that, and all of those are great experiences. I mean, I go to NFL games a lot. I go to the Texans game a lot. I was actually at the game when the Texans played the Titans here. I was at that game. And I'm obviously a Dolphin fan, so I go to Miami a lot for the Dolphin games, and my daughter dates a guy who plays for the Carolina Panthers, so I go to those games, and so I loved NFL games, and it's certainly a different experience than it is now. But
Mhm.
the nostalgia part of those stadiums and those rivalries was really huge and really, really fun to be in and play in.
Nice, nice. All right, man. Let's talk a little bit about maybe one of your favorite games or a game that you recall very vividly in your time.
I mean, it's been some. You mean my games that I played in, or my
Yeah,
favorite games of
yeah,
all time?
your game, you that you physically played in.
Like I said, man, I'm very honest about who I am. I was a guy, man. I wasn't a world beater. I was, to the reality of it is I was happy to be there. You know what I mean? But, you make an NFL team and you deserve to be there. I mean, you're talking
100%.
about the best of the best of the best. My best game is, in Indianapolis. I had 4 catches. I caught a 2-point conversion. Obviously, you know, I made the team through my play in preseason. And so, I had a really good game in preseason against the Cowboys, which really kind of solidified me making the team. And,
Mhm.
um, Ernest of it, Haywood had gotten hurt. So I actually started that game. And they had Larry Brown, who the Super Bowl MVP,
Mhm.
and I roasted his ass. It is what it is. And I was able to make the team off that game because you make the practice squad, and you got to remember when I played, you only made the practice squad 1 year. So
Okay.
once you was on the practice squad, either you made the team or you were out of the league, and that's
Oh,
just what it
really?
was.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, those practice squad rules, slowly changed over the
Mhm.
years. You got it. When I think there used to be two, and then I played when they kept four, so we can have 4 or 5 players on the practice squad when I played. And you preseason and practice is what it's all about. And again, I was drafted. I wasn't drafted. I was a free agent, and when I came out, there were 12 rounds in the draft. And that year, because we were the run and shoot, we had drafted three
So that's
receivers in
that's
that draft.
mhm.
And all three of them got cut, and I was able to make the practice squad. It was a pretty big accomplishment. And
Mhm.
back in those days, there wasn't the PR machine where if a fourth rounder got cut or a third rounder got cut, it wasn't a big deal because you had 12 draft picks.
Gotcha.
Now, if a third rounder was to get cut coming out of
Big
training
deal.
camp, that would be a really, really big deal. A
Mhm.
fifth rounder getting cut coming out of training camp would be a really, really big deal.
Mhm.
And so, I had my moments. I had my moments, but again, I'm very honest about who I was. But hey, man, you make the NFL and you make the best of it.
Hey, I mean, you better than half of the people that, like I said, regardless if you're a practice squad or not. I mean,
Yeah.
when you went into the NFL. Now, I did have a wide receiver um, player that I interviewed that went undrafted as well. Uh,
Mhm.
his name was Drew Bennett, played for the Tennessee Titans,
I
and
remember Drew Bennett, of course.
Drew Bennett, good guy. I talked to him
Yeah.
from time to time,
Was
and
he 83? What
yeah,
was
he was 6 something. He was tall.
Right, no, but what was his number? His full
Oh,
number.
his number was 83.
Right, 83. That's what I said. 83.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
remember.
So,
I'm a Dolphins fan,
oh,
and I pay attention to the Titans, though. I pay attention. I pay attention.
that's good. I like that. Thank you, thank you. So
Not a fan.
I had him on, and he was talking about the struggle of you know not getting selected and being undrafted, and then trying to work his way into the rotation, into the
Man,
lineup. And he said it was one of the most difficult things, especially being wide receiver. Is that
man,
correct? You could say that.
man. Again, for me, you got to think about it this way, right? From my own perspective, because I know exactly what he's talking about. I'm in the run and shoot, and that we have four Pro Bowlers in Curtis Duncan, Warren Moon, Curtis Duncan, Webster Slaughter, Ernest Givens, and Haywood Jeffries. All four of them are going to Pro Bowls, right? And then that they're backups from the year prior to me coming as a free agent. So there were 8 receivers there the year before I got there. And
Gee.
then the Oilers draft 3 guys. So and I'm coming in, there are 11 guys that automatically are in front of me, right? That's automatic. So and then you got receivers who, because it's the run and shoot, they're bringing in. When we went to training camp with 18 receivers, 18 in
Wow.
training, because it's the run and shoot, right? And
Yep.
you're running and you're running and you're running. So when I get to camp, I'm looking at this and saying, damn, they got the 8 from the previous year, then, or 7, it was 7, then the 7 from the previous year, and then the 3 that they drafted, that's 10. So in my mind, it's like, okay, I'm not gonna make the team. Let's just be real. But you got to get on the practice team. So you start looking, okay, there's 3 draft picks, then there's a guy that went to, University of Washington, and there's a guy that went to the University of Texas, walk-on guys like me.
Hmm.
And I played at HBCU, right? And so you just start thinking about, okay, you come back, a mental wreck,
Wow.
because everything that I did, I was scrutinizing. If somehow I dropped the ball, which fortunately I did not, but if you don't run the wrong route, you're like, damn, is that the thing that's gonna get me cut? You drop a pass, is
That's
that the
it.
thing that's
Yep.
gonna get me cut? And it just started where I came to rookie camp and had a really, really good rookie camp. I was playing probably at the best I'd ever played in that rookie camp, where my agent called me and said, "Hey, I don't know what you did down there, but there's a buzz.
Hmm.
There's a thing going on. Some people are saying your name." So I'm like, bet. And then you come back for training camp now, and you're only getting 2 or 3 reps. And for someone like me, because I wasn't known, I could tell you this, it was, I remember one of the worst days in my life, right? So I go out, and it's the second day of practice, and I make a couple of plays, and the receiver coach comes up to me and he says, "Hey man, what school did you go to? What college did you go to?" I'm like, "God, you don't even know who I am." Man, you know what I mean? I was just torn up. Like, oh, how am I
It
gonna
was
make
more of a
the team?
mental game, right? Because
Yes.
I think that's what he said to me too. It was just like a mental game because and same thing with Derek Mason. Derek Mason, and even though he got drafted, up there too, he was saying that it was just because then he's like, damn, not only did you try to make you have the regular starters, but then they're picking people from free agency and they're coming and they're
That, all of that,
so,
and you gotta, and you only get so many opportunities when you're a free agent walk on. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And they were sending people home left and right, because obviously, you're an undrafted free agent, and I got undrafted from Alabama State University, but
mhm.
there are undrafted guys from the University of Miami that's waiting on a phone call. There's
Yep, that's it.
undrafted guys
Yep.
from Georgia that's waiting for a phone call. And so somehow, for whatever reason, they brought me in the camp, and now every single day, every single minute, I mean, literally, man, like, I would practice 2 a days, stay in my playbook all night. I mean, I was literally going to bed at 2:30, 3 o'clock at night, because I just couldn't sleep because of the stress involved with What am I going to say if they cut me? How are people going to view me? I got to go back to Alabama. All of the
And but yeah,
things and your dreams. And it's just the last practice I ever have in my life, because there wasn't USFL and all of these things that they have now. It was
it's the
NFL.
NFL, and that's it.
And so all of that going on, I was a mental wreck, man. And I'll tell you something funny, man. So the night we have the last preseason game, and the cameras are there, and they're talking to us, and I get interviewed, and they say, you know, what are you thinking? I say, I gave it my best shot. And then by this time, I'm one of the bubble guys. And you know how it is, where at the end of training camp, who's going to make it, who's not going to make it, who's on the bubble. And so I was one of the bubble guys that was in the paper of, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. And you say, well, all I can do is I gave it everything I had,
That's
and
it.
I can walk away with this saying I gave it everything I had. And the next morning, we're all staying in the hotel, all the rookies, and it's 4 to a room when the residents
Oh,
in, and the phone rings, and John Doe, go outside the hotel, check out, bring your clothes, your check, your
oh,
your 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 playbook, and they hang up, and the phone rings again, because all of us in there are rookies and free agents, and the phone rings again, and it's him, and the phone rings again, and it's me, and
oh
we
man.
go down there, and we go to the facilities, and the general manager comes in, he calls everybody one by one, and everybody's coming out and basically saying the same thing. Man, they said I did, because obviously they go in and they come out and what they say, and everybody's saying the same thing. Like, yeah, man, they said I did a good job and stay in shape because they might call me back for the practice squad, right? And everybody's saying that. And so when it's my time to go in, I go in, and Mr. Hollaback is there, the general manager, and he says, man, you came out of nowhere and you really impressed us. And, I have to tell you, we signed you as a camp body, and, and this and that. And he's like, but we're going to sign you to the practice squad. And my heart dropped, and I was, because everybody was saying it. They said, I was like, what do you mean that are you going to sign me to the practice squad? And he's like, yeah, we're going to sign you. And I said, can I go get an apartment? He said, you can go get an apartment, man. And then I don't know, aside from going to heaven and having a baby, if that feeling could ever be matched, man. And I left, and I went out, and I was so nervous and didn't want to jinx it, that I told them that was telling people, yeah, man, they said this and this and this and this. But I didn't get on the bus. So there was a bus that was going back to the hotel, and there was these were vans, a van that was going to the hotel in the van, and I got in the van that was going back to the hotel. And man, the proudest moment of my life was I got back in the hotel, and they immediately called my dad and say, Dad, we made it, man. We made it. So, but the stress, man, I imagine my blood pressure for 3 weeks I guess it was 3.5 weeks of real training camp was probably 100 and 300 over something, man. It was it's unnerving, it's nerve wracking,
Unhealthy. That's what.
unhealthy, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. That's wild.
Hey, man, it's crazy. And everybody that goes through it, man, you it's so crazy, because as you're going through this, you're meeting other guys, that Dion Turner, who went to Vanderbilt, and Elbert Turner, who went to Illinois. He was one of the drafted guys, and Mario Bailey was the second runner up in the Heisman Trophy, and he went to Washington, and we're all there. And coming from a black college,
Hmm.
I believe that I belong.
Hmm.
I'm not afraid to compete, but these guys went to Alabama, Auburn, Washington,
Those big.
and now there's this, and I got a Miami mentality, like I don't give a where you
Yeah.
went, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, they went to Alabama, and are they gonna pick them over me when it comes right down to it? Will they say big college versus small college? So it's all of that.
Hmm.
But God is good, and I'm blessed and fortunate.
That's awesome, man. That's good. I love, like I said, I love hearing the stories of adversity and stuff like that, especially from a wide receiver point of view. Because I had several wide receivers on, and I never got that side of like of that position before. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that and how much mental stress goes into that. When you were out there, who was the QB that you would play with?
So in the preseason games, it just happened that Cody Carson, who was the backup to Warren Moon, in practice. But fortunately for me, things just would happen where I would end up with the first team. And these were very fluke things where one game, like I said, one game, Haywood ran off the field with in the run and shoot. You had X, Y, Z, and H receivers, and you played one of those. So you didn't play multiple receivers positions. You were one of, you were one position. And
Gotcha.
Haywood came off the field, he was like had hurt his ankle or something, and nobody saw him. So he said, "Come here, come into the sideline," and nobody ran in. And I'm looking around, waiting on somebody, and the clock is ticking. And I just ran out there like I thought it was in. You get out there, and this is a preseason game, and they call my number, and I make a play, and you stay in there. So I don't care what anybody says, man. There is in every aspect of life, man, there's skill, there's luck, there's God's grace and mercy, man. You know what I mean? You people who say it's me and it's all about me and it's everything that I did. No, my brother played a huge factor in my life. My father, teachers,
Mhm.
all of these things come together to make you who you are as an individual. And people who you these and usually it's a receiver, like you said, these divas, who think it's all about them, but really it's not, man. It's about this culmination of people and things and working hard and paying the price and luck, because you see this all the time, man. You get a guy who's a surefire hit, but they go to the wrong organization,
Yep.
wrong offense, wrong coordinator, and they suck. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with any position, man. You gotta have a lot of luck and a lot of grace and mercy.
Definitely, man. Now they did the throwbacks, right? This year they did the throwbacks. How did you feel personally seeing the Houston or the Columbia Blue back when I think we played the Falcons and we played obviously the Texans? Just seeing that uniform again. How did it?
I
How was
would
it for you?
say that the Adams family is ruthless and petty. You know what I
Oh,
That is ruthless and petty, man. To do that to the Houston Texans and the fans of Houston, man, I have, except for maybe it sold some more jerseys,
100%.
you know, I I just don't understand why they would do a city like that, man. I really don't. That was so petty. You got, seven other home games, play it against Indianapolis, wear it against Indianapolis, Jacksonville, to wear it against the Texans, I thought, was pretty classless, and not the team,
Mhm.
but the Adams
The
family.
owner, yeah, the
Yeah,
owners.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you think about it this way: Warren Moon, Earl Campbell, Bruce Matthews, Mike Manchek, they're in nobody's ring of honor. The city of Houston has none of their records. It's as if they didn't exist.
Hmm.
And the city of Houston has tried to buy the rights to the Oilers, the records, and this, just for a city, because you're talking about an organization, the Love You Blue eras, the run and shoot era. There are people that absolutely love and adore that team, and there are a lot of people that went with them to Tennessee. So a
Yep.
lot of Houston fans are Titans fans.
Yep. That transitioned.
And I think that, well, I know for a fact, because I've heard it from my friends and people I know say, I'm done with the Titans after they did that. That was pretty bad for them to, it's almost like make a mockery of that whole thing. And
Of the whole.
it sucked, yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think yeah, the Titans I think put them all in um, the Ring of Honor. I know Bruce Matthews.
Oh, so well, Bruce played in, but not, is Warren in there?
I believe so. I'm not.
Oh,
I'm not.
cool, cool, cool.
I'm not.
I
Not
guess it's in Houston, there's not a place that recognizes them.
exactly. Yeah. In Tennessee, they do. They have them, and they did. Billy White Shoe Johnson. They at the game I was at, they inducted him into the Ring of Honor for Tennessee as well.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Well,
That's
you know what? It's crazy. Let's talk a little bit about some Dolphin football. I know this is a Titans channel, but you're from Miami, and you know what? My dad was the biggest Dolphin fan, and like I said, when I started watching football back in '99, I decided not to go with the rest of my family and be a Dolphins fan. I didn't want to be Dan Marino, even though I loved watching them. Don't get me wrong. But I went with Steve McNair and Eddie George and like
of
that.
course.
But
That wasn't a bad choice right there. Now, if you go,
it wasn't at the time, and then after that, we kind of,
yeah.
lost our way. But let's talk a little bit about the Dolphins era, because again, Dolphins were always fun. I always liked watching them. One of my favorite um, wide receivers for the Dolphins was what was it? OJ McDuffie, was that him?
Oh yeah, most
Yeah,
definitely. Juice.
yeah. He was fun. Like I said, and my dad was a diehard
Yes.
Dolphins fan. What do you think about the Dolphins this year, man? What do you think?
Man, so I think we're gonna beat KC. Let me say
Okay,
that.
okay. I got you on. I'm recording it, so we good. Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
But this, what it, my quarterback got to show up. I know, there is being able to play in the NFL. He
Mhm.
certainly can do that. And you guys probably know this better than anything because of Ryan Tannehill. You know, how do you perform in big time moments?
That's where it did come down to, right?
And as much as this word, you probably heard this word tournier and all of that. I'm a tournier. I'm a supporter of our quarterback, but I was a Tannehill a near, if you will. He's my
Okay.
quarterback, so I'm 100 with my
You're gonna
quarterback.
ride with the quarterback, regardless
Yeah,
of who it is. Okay.
yeah, whoever it is, I'm gonna say we're gonna beat you
So
with him.
you were a Jay Feely fan?
Jay Feely,
Okay.
Lemon, Cleo Lemon, McGuire, all of Rosen, all the bums.
Okay.
Fitzpatrick. If you're a Dolphin fan, then I'm a fan of my quarterback, and that's how
Okay.
I fan. And I know
I
people fan,
respect that.
but I just fan like my quarterback, my team gonna beat you, even if I don't 100% believe it in my heart. I
Mhm.
think that any given Sunday we gonna win, and
That's
so
all.
that's how I fan, and that's just what it is for me. And but there is a realistic part of this that our quarterback can, make some hell of a throws. His anticipation, he has some big time skills, but it's December,
Yeah.
and in December is when we find out who people are, and he has to start winning some of these games in December. Eh, if he will lose a fan base if we don't beat Kansas City. I mean, it's because the fan base has always been divided on is he the guy or is he not the guy. And if we lose this game, I think it's going to be a tipping the scale. But I feel confident that we're going to win. I mean, and on top of the fact that we've been decimated this year with injuries, I mean, absolutely decimated. And that's the NFL. But I don't think that any team has been the guys have been impacted like we've been impacted. We've lost Jalen Phillips, a top 15 defensive end in the league. Then we lose Chubb, and we've lost, Jalen Ramsey was out for 10 games, and we've had been missed Waddle for some games, and missed Tyreek for some games, and the starting center and the starting left guard and the starting offensive line. Yeah, so I fully expect us to win, and winning handles everything. We beat Kansas City, and the last month of the season doesn't even matter.
That's true.
So yeah, but I became a Dolphin fan in about 19, and I know this is gonna make you shiver. 1976, 77.
I was nothing but a gleam in my father's eyes.
You know, when I got old enough to really understand football, the Dolphins had won the Super Bowl in 72 and 73 and were still relevant. And, I just got on board. And, and then in 83, Dan Marino was drafted. And, I was 14 years old, and I started going to the stadium, not really for the Dolphins, but you could go and sell sodas and hot dogs and make some money at the games. And so,
Okay.
coming from, Liberty City to hood, rather than going and stealing and
Mhm.
selling drugs, I went and worked at the stadium and made money that way at the Hurricane games and the Dolphins games. And so I was able to make some money and then watch, the Hurricanes when they were winning, national championships, and watch Dan Marino and that whole thing. And it really fueled my love for the Dolphins and my love for football,
Yeah,
and wanting to.
I remember that stadium. That stadium, there was no shade. Remember, they had
Yeah.
the Marlins. They had the Florida Marlins play at the same time. Because I remember going to Florida Marlin games and just getting absolutely cooked because there was no shade. And I haven't gone back to the stadium where they put like
Yeah.
the top on. But yeah, it was rough watching those games sometimes, man.
And that Orange Bowl, I talked about this earlier with the Cleveland Browns and the Steelers. That
Mm.
Orange Bowl, man, when the Dolphins were good, I was at the game, and you may not know about this game. I'm sure some of your viewers will know the year that the Dolphins were 13-1, and we played the Chicago Bears. And that game is a while he talked about this. Bears were undefeated at the point, and the
Mhm.
Dolphins played them on a Monday night. And man, that stadium was rocking. And that's when they implemented the game where they had to keep stopping the game because the quarterback for the Chicago Bears couldn't hear. He just couldn't call a play, and that's where the silent count came from that game, because they had
Okay.
to keep stopping the game because it was so freaking loud. And I'm selling maybe sodas in that game, and I mean that stadium is old, rickety, and it's shaking. And I mean, that my love for Miami there. And you know, and one of the craziest things for me was the year that I'm with the Oilers and we go and play Miami.
Oh man, I can imagine that, huh?
And I can remember, because when I tell you I'm a diehard Dolphins fan, like when I was growing up, I used to cry when they lose. And now I'm faced with, do I beat my best team, my favorite team in the world, as the Oilers?
hmm
Fortunately for me, we ended up as the Oilers losing that game.
hmm
And so I walked off the field, like, well, if we got to lose, at least it was to the Dolphins, you know what I mean? But that
uh,
when guys who have a favorite team, if
mhm.
they say there's not a thing, obviously you don't want to lose,
Of course,
but there is a thing there that I'm playing my hometown team.
of course.
Yeah, there's a
And
thing.
I bet you at one point in your career you wanted to eventually play for the Dolphins, right?
Day one,
Yeah.
from day one, when my agent called me after the draft was over and said, "Hey, you know, we got two teams that are interested," and he told me Tampa Bay and Houston.
Hmm.
And I wanted to go to Tampa Bay, not because it was Florida, but I just thought that with the run and shoot, the Oilers had already had their receivers, because I knew that, that run and shoot, I liked that offense. So I used to kind of pay attention to it. I knew that they had a lot of receivers, and I knew that, at that time their receivers were young and coming back and all of that. So I thought I had a better chance of making the team
Hmm.
at Tampa Bay. But I remember him asking him specifically when he said, you know, Tampa Bay wants to sign you in Houston, and I think we should go to Houston. I asked him specifically, did you contact Miami? He said, well, it don't really work like that. I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta get in, where you fit in, right? You gotta go where somebody wants you. So
Yeah.
yeah, I ended up with that. But certainly I always wanted to play for Miami. I mean, come on.
That's interesting to just have that kind of perspective of, you know, I never even thought of it like that, of a player, having a favorite team and then playing against them.
And I mean, I don't want to take other people's experience for granted. I
Mm,
just know for me and my love for the Miami Dolphins, like there was a thing there
mhm,
that obviously I want to win as the Oilers,
mhm.
but Miami, man, I bleed that aqua and teal, and that teal aqua and orange. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
Okay, that's cool. I respect that. That's awesome. That's cool though. That's an interesting story. Uh, well, Dr. Reginald, I want to say before I let you go, because I mean we've been talking for a while. I know you got to get up, and I got to get up. I just want to say I appreciate the stories, the time you have taken to talk to me. I loved it, man. I loved every single part of it. It's always great to connect with people through experiences and goals and stuff like that, and it's awesome. So I want to say thank you so much for your time.
well, thank you for having me, man. I get the chance to relive and remember, right? So as much as I hope your audience enjoys this segment, and I hope it does something for your ratings, and I want to say right now, hit the like, subscribe, and do all
There,
of that stuff
there
right
you
now
go.
for my man. But this has been more for me than you, I have to tell you, because I've had a ball reliving some of these things. And I do have to say as well that you did an excellent job, in my opinion, of moderating this and setting these things up. And I don't think that your viewers should take this for granted, how you drove this conversation. And at least from my perspective, I've enjoyed it. And I think that's a testament to you and who you are and what you're trying to do. And again, hit that like, subscribe, and thumbs up, and share it, and tell everybody, man, and support my man. And do you have a Patreon, Zelle, Cash App, all of that stuff?
No, man. Like I said, I just do. I mostly do this just for the love of talking football, and I took off the monetization at one point because it kind of I was too stressed about trying to to put out content to try to make money. And I said, you know what, wasn't what it was about for me. It was more about enjoying doing something that I love. And if I was gonna stress about doing something like this, then I didn't want to do it. So I took off the monetization. And it's not even about money, nothing like that. It's not even about the views. It's just about the experience. And I think that's where I covered it, man.
Well, I think that's very noble of you, but I will tell you that you got some skills, and your gifts will make room for you. So just keep doing what you're doing, and you're gonna be able to reap those rewards soon enough.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words, man. And God
Hey,
bless.
man, if I was what do y'all say now? Tighten, what is it?
Tighten up, baby. Tighten up. Gotta
That,
say it, man. Come on, come on. He said that.
hey, man, you know that Miami Twitter and Miami is ruthless, man. they waiting on me to do something like that. It ain't in me. But yeah, man, God bless you, your family, and certainly God bless America.
Absolutely, man.